It's gone from a sense from the headline being possibly revenge to, I don't know, replacement, as in the quarterback situation at Florida State. So we're talking Florida State and Clemson in regards to the game. Mark Rogers TV here, joined by Brittnee Taylor Newman of Last Word on Sports and also football.com. But before we get to the game, of course, the occurrences over the last 24 hours, Taylor, have really thrown this into a social situation that completely transfers out of the football or the sports realm into society, and some of the actions of Mr. Jameis Winston again. And for some of us that don't understand the context of his actions, not that it makes it right, but I think you bring a pretty interesting perspective to the table in regards to what Mr. Winston, how he conducted himself this week.
Yes, he's definitely put us back into the headlines again, put Florida State back into the headlines again. There is a little bit of history and context that goes with it that I know I was not familiar with at first. There was a YouTube video that had gone viral earlier in the year of a gentleman pretending to be a TV reporter who used that phrase in the middle of what they staged as a live broadcast. So after that, there were follow-up videos filmed where people were interjecting that phrase, and then it kind of took off where other people, college-age students, were filming themselves saying it at inopportune moments in public places and putting that on YouTube. So apparently this is a thing. I was not familiar with it before this situation came up in the news yesterday. But that, I guess, is the history behind it, the context for it. I understand that side of it, and I understand why there are some people on social media that are saying he didn't do anything illegal, this isn't really wrong, I've done this with my friends. I think we've seen a little bit of that in social media. But when you look at Jameis Winston's case, the situation that he had last year, the accusations, the subsequent investigation, he was cleared of it. This is one of those things where he really should be minding his P's and Q's. You and I talked just a few weeks ago when they were in fall camp, and we addressed his immaturities, and he just finished a fantastic preseason interview with Kirk Herbstreit where I think he led a lot of us to believe that he'd learned from his lessons. I certainly did. But when this latest instance, it's so blatantly obvious, I think, to everyone else that for a gentleman who'd had the accusations he had last year, I don't think that he should have needed an explanation on why this was a very, very bad decision to participate in such a ridiculous prank in the middle of the student union where it easily could have been caught on video. I don't know how it wasn't, but certainly went live on social media afterwards. So this really should have been an obvious no for Jameis, despite the fact that it's just supposed to be a prank and be funny. It should have been an obvious no.
Yeah, like you, for somebody like me, Brittnee, it does bring some context to the situation where I now understand a little bit better, not pretending to understand fully where he was conducting himself in a certain, based on what everybody else is doing. And as we're taught typically from the time where, yay, hi, you don't do what everybody else does. If they're going to jump off a bridge, are you going to jump off a bridge? So that's number one for just any young person out there conducting themselves just in general. And then second, you bring his position into the forefront of what he is expected to do as a prominent player on a prominent team and winning the Heisman Trophy and being placed in the status of a role model or example. We could go into that debate of whether he's a role model or should be. Regardless, he's placed in that position, and if you're going to go down that path of celebrity, with all the benefits that come with that, the fame, the money, potentially, and all those things, then there are trappings that come along with that as well. And then on top of that, yes, you very succinctly put together the argument that he's brought himself into another category because of what he's done in the past to where he really needs to be mindful of his conduct and obviously made a very, whether you agree with what's been going on among young people doing this, he's placed himself in a bad position and should have been mindful of what he's done in the past and also the position that he's been given and the place of privilege and responsibility that he has in this situation. So yeah, it's unfortunate. He will miss the first half. So your thoughts about his replacement, Sean Maguire, gets the start. So he's suddenly the Florida State quarterback for at least a half. and Jameis Winston will most likely start the second half, and we will see how it goes from there against an opponent that they're expected to beat handily, but still a very athletic, very fast opponent. So it's Maguire, then it's Winston, Brittnee.
Yes, the quarterback du jour. Sean Maguire he's a fantastic quarterback. Fans have not seen a lot of action from him up until this point because last year the starting backup, of course, was Jacob Coker, now of Alabama notoriety. But he was a top 25 ranked quarterback coming out the same class as Jameis Winston, a very, very talented kid, just not quite as experienced. He did take a lot of reps with the first team this spring when Jameis Winston was out of pocket playing with the baseball team. So he's familiar with the system. I know that during yesterday's press conference, Jameis mentioned that he'd be working with him in the film room this week, trying to make sure that he's ready for the game as much as possible. But I mean, career stats so far for the season, he's 3 of 5 for the passes he took in the game against Citadel, 28 yards, and that's about all that we know for 2014. We'll certainly find out more in the first half on Saturday. It'll be interesting to see because Clemson's pass defense is as good as they come. They'll kind of have the opportunity, I think, to be able to rattle him a little bit in the beginning. I don't know that Sean Maguire is as calm and confident as you would see from Jameis Winston. So I would expect them to rely heavily on Carlos Williams, running back, tight end Nick O'Leary, to kind of try to help ease some of the pressure off Maguire in the first half.
There was already a lot of psychology involved in this football game, even before the antics of Mr. Winston, with just what happened last year at Clemson, the history of the way the ACC's developed in the fact that Florida State's just emerged as clearly the best team in the conference, if not the country at this point, where it was muddled between Virginia Tech and Miami and all these teams battling for position like 5 years ago, and now Florida State's gone on the ascent. Clemson, to a much lesser extent, they had that head-to-head meeting. Okay, who's the best in the ACC last year? Florida State clearly distinguished themselves, embarrassed Clemson. Heard a lot of Clemson players talk about being embarrassed last year, them not enjoying necessarily some of the comments Jameis Winston had to say even before this incident came up about Clemson and how they own Clemson and own the field. And I guess he tweeted a picture of Death Valley at one point and that that was their home field, those sorts of things. So there was already psychology working with that, and does Clemson come out extra motivated? Do they have that revenge factor, or do they have a lack of confidence knowing, wow, these guys really manhandled us at our place last year? So that was already brewing there, and I'm a bit surprised that the odds makers in Vegas, who usually, wow, are really on top of this in regards to how this should be this type of news would affect a football game, only dropped the line about 4 points. Of course, Jameis will play the second half. So just your thoughts about the matchup and who may have an edge because of what happened last year, or even if that plays into it at all.
Yeah, I'm surprised as well. I kind of expected everyone else to expect a little bit more disruption as a result of this. I think that Clemson already is fired up, as you said, because they were embarrassed from the game last year. It is a revenge game for them. And although it is just a half, they don't have Taj Boyd and Sammy Watkins this year. Florida State worked that first half to their advantage very, very much last year. They were able to go into halftime up 27-7 and use that momentum in their favor the entire time. Clemson was never able to recover. So if I'm Dabo Swinney, I'm fully aware of exactly how effective that first half can be in regards to momentum of the entire game. If I can use my pass defense to rattle Sean Maguire, if my offensive attack is strong enough that I can walk out of the first half with a lead, I put myself in the best position possible to actually be able to have a shot at securing a W. So I think there could be a little bit more disruption in the first half than perhaps Vegas thinks that there could be. I think it gives them a shot at an upset. I'm not sure that anybody would have given them a shot before this, but I think it kind of gives them a shot at the upset. That first half momentum, it was imperative for Florida State last year. Dabo Swinney's smart. He's got a fired up team. This could help him. He was interesting in a press conference this week. he just said, in regards to the suspension, he said, well, if we're good enough to win, we're going to win, and if we're not, we're not. Like, he doesn't seem to be stressing it. But I think it does best position him to have a shot at it. And I think it'll be interesting to see how he utilizes that dual quarterback system that he's running over there in regards to that, if he tends to lean more one way or the other. Cole, Stoudt, obviously, more experienced, this senior may best be able to kind of try to capitalize on that situation in front of a hostile crowd in Tallahassee. So we'll see.
Yeah, Cole Stout's going to be the starter, we assume. He started the Georgia game, started the other game for Clemson. Tiger fans are in a bit of a quandary, and I think there's a lot of disruption amongst the Tiger faithful in regards to who should start this game, because Cole Stoudt is the more experienced player, probably has a better grasp of the offense, and Deshaun Watson's kind of the wow guy, the younger, newer guy, the guy that's got more explosiveness, stronger arm, can threaten the defense down the field, explosive runner, more talent, higher ceiling. So who's going to give you the better chance? If you want to play the conservative route, it's Cole Stoudt. If it's, okay, boom or bust, then it's Deshaun Watson. Well, we'll most likely see both quarterbacks play, but it's going to be what's the distribution of the quarterback system. I have no rooting interest in this, Brittnee. I like to hear what you just said about Jimbo Fisher's comments, and from that standpoint, would like to see Florida State look like the better team in the first half, just to reinforce his statement that, hey, this is what we're playing with, this is the deal, we're a team, we're 80, 90, 100 guys, it's not a one-man team. I would love to see that reinforced on the field rather than Clemson's up 10 at halftime and Florida State comes roaring back behind Jameis Winston in the second half. That would be a storyline that maybe college football fans who are generally neutral don't want to see, just because of the possible right or wrong implications of that and the message that it would send.
Well, exactly. At that point, how much of a punishment is it really if Jameis Winston sits out the first half? He's a player. He's going to be eager to be in the game, of course. But then if he comes back second half, rescues them from a 7-point deficit, and is the hero, I'm not really certain that he will have learned anything with a half-game suspension at that point in that kind of a scenario.
Hey, Brittnee, we thank you so much for the time, the breakdown on Florida State and Clemson. What are you working on this week? We know that you got the Auburn and Kansas State matchup lined up as well, and a few other things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I will actually be in attendance at the Clemson-Florida State game, so I'll get to see how that plays out in person this weekend. Working on one more piece to kind of highlight all the elements of the Alabama-Florida game on Saturday, so that'll be coming shortly.
Good stuff. Brittnee, thank you so much for the time, the information, and the insight.
Thank you for having me on.